It's kind of like the daylight savings time problem. There were so many ideas that they had about like, oh, we could produce, we could increase aggregate productivity of people if we would have them like go to work earlier, and come home later and not be so focused on whether the sun was up or not. And so they had all these tax incentive ideas. They had all these ideas that they thought about doing, but the idea that ended up sticking was not to talk about that at all, just to come up with the Daylight Savings Time Act and actually change the definition of time at the time that they wanted, and don't tell people why. And then, they got the bump that they wanted in the economy without, and I think it was Richard Nixon signed that into law originally. They got the bump in the economic productivity that they wanted, but they didn't get into the quagmire of the fight about like, I don't want anybody telling me when to go to work and blah, blah, blah. So that's where it doesn't always have to be a democracy. As long as you know you're working on the right problem and you believe in the morality of what you're trying to achieve, I think that, it's part of how we're trying to solve this ocean problem to not get caught up in the disaster of fighting over partisan politics. For profit, because I originally thought maybe it would be a nonprofit, but then I realized there's no way a nonprofit's going to kind of muster the energy and the excitement in the marketplace to actually be able to get this problem done. That there has to be a way to structure it so it's a for-profit company. So this will get a whole nother set of investors aligned to the idea that if we invest in a tools company to produce the tools to fix the ocean's problems, how much in spades will that come back to us as the jurisdictions and the governments wake up and realize, oh my God, we need these tools to help solve the problem. So I think making the tools is kind of, and making them in a way that can make money is a way that will draw the world's attention, and in a way, it's the same way the iPhone draws the world's attention. And when you unleash that kind of force on the problem, combined with, I hope, thousands of other companies that will get this message from all around the world and work with us, I think that's kind of the best way to muster the resources to go after this game. The crossover is just that there are a lot of problems like, there used to be 12 trillion trees on Earth and now there are only 4 trillion trees on Earth and we need to plant 8 trillion trees. That the staggering nature of the environmental problem just has us like in a quagmire of inaction where we can't even decide on what step to take. I kind of hope that this problem will be and how we go about solving it will be a leadership example for maybe working on the fisheries problems or coral problems in the ocean or tree problems. And who knows, maybe we might decide to solve some of the tree problems with how we deal with plant life in the oceans. I'm not sure. But I bite my tongue because I don't want to say, all of that needs to be studied. Once you say that, you kind of move the problem away from action and away from happening immediately. And they're not going to stop making Coca-Cola bottles. They're not going to stop making iPhones. That engine doesn't ever pause. And I think that instead of thinking about it as an environmental problem, I hope what we're kind of proving out is that these problems can become private sector kind of issues. We need to give a name for this kind of activity, and we go after it that way, where we're kind of building the infrastructure and selling that infrastructure as a solution, and the residual consequence might actually be that some greater environmental good happens, but that doesn't have to be always put in everybody's face so that it becomes a dividing issue. I really think it's going to be about the initial teams that we assemble to actually go after this problem are going to they're just going to rock. I've assembled great teams in the past, and there's something so magical about it's not just saying, I have 100 great individual resources. It's that 30 of them combined to something that they could have never done individually, and their aggregate kind of thinking power and transitive wisdom just becomes incredibly awesome. And what you need to do as a leader is be able to gather those resources together, to inspire them to start to cross-pollinate, and unleash them with an economic engine behind them. And that's how the iPhone gets built in the very beginning. The only shift here is, like, what if we were working on things where that had really great net good? It doesn't really have to just be about for profit only. It could also be about a net good happening too. And so you put those two together, this isn't out of the reach of what this area knows how to do well.